Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 71, Bell Test 01. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 36. Minato woke up the next morning, before the sun even started to rise. He went to his kitchen and grabbed something to eat, already familiar with the nature of the test Jiraiya would conduct. However, he didn't fill up too much and grabbed some cereal bars he had bought at a grocery store. He put on clothes that were almost his ninja style, consisting of black shorts and a white t-shirt. He left his house and headed towards Training Ground 7, while the sun was still nowhere to be seen. He arrived sometime later and saw Hanabi there. "You always arrive early," Minato landed smoothly and walked over to the girl. "Minato, good morning," she said with a small smile as she looked at him, but then noticed something. "Where's your headband?" she asked. "Oh, that. I gave it to a friend who needed it more than I do." "I hope Sensei can request a new one for me," Minato commented with an awkward smile. He noticed Hanabi was dressed in a white cloak on the top, resembling a robe, and shorts of the same color with a pouch tied to her thigh. She said, not sure what to say about that, thinking it was probably Kushina, but she didn't ask further. "Ah, you guys are here," Makoto jumped down from a tree, announcing her arrival. She was wearing shorts similar to Hanabi's but dark, with a long-sleeved t-shirt, some arm guards, keeping her headband with dark cloth on her forehead while her two ponytails at the front of her head swayed gently. "Now we just have to wait for Sensei," Minato commented, already knowing it would take a while. Minato practiced some taijutsu moves as the sun rose. "I've never seen those moves. Is this your style now?" Makoto commented, watching Minato's performance, which was quite different from what he had shown at the academy, as he easily defeated opponents and she hadn't fought him for a long time, unlike Hanabi who had recently fought with Minato. Makoto had never seen such an aggressive taijutsu style. "Yes, this is my fighting style," Minato commented without stopping his movements. He used a style different from most ninjas, which was based on aggression with punches and kicks in face-to-face combat. Minato continued training, using a piece of wood to punch, but without putting much force, just perfecting his style. Not too far away, Jiraiya appeared while evaluating his future students. Something Minato was already aware of, his observation haki could easily sense him from this distance now. "They are waiting for me. And the boy, he decided to spend his time training. I hope this is interesting," he murmured, and seeing that the sun was already beginning in the sky, he jumped from the tree, landing in front of them. "Good morning," Jiraiya announced with a smile. "You're late, we've been here for an hour," Makoto complained, crossing her arms. "Hanabi." Minato stopped training and approached, thankful he wasn't a Kakashi, otherwise they would be waiting until noon. "Good morning," Minato approached and took a cereal bar from his pocket, before opening it and eating it in front of Jiraiya and the others. Jiraiya looked at him, not sure what to say. After all, he had asked for no one to eat, but this kid seemed smarter than he had imagined. "Here," Minato handed a cereal bar to Hanabi and Makoto as well. Jiraiya couldn't do anything while the girls also ate their cereal bars. "Well, I guess we can start," Jiraiya said a bit awkwardly, before all the students began to turn their attention to him and listen to his explanation of the test. "Now let's begin. The test will be as follows. You will have to get these bells," he said, taking 2 bells from his pocket and standing up for everyone to see. "These bells I have here will be your objectives until the end of the day. If you can't get them, consider yourselves failed," Jiraiya said calmly, still holding 2 shiny bells in his hand for everyone to see clearly. "But don't think it will be an easy task. I'll do everything to stop you." "But there are only 2 bells," Hanabi commented, realizing like Makoto. Jiraiya looked at them with a solemn gaze before continuing. "Yes, there are only 2 bells here and you are 3. This means that one of you will inevitably be without a bell and will fail," he said. This doesn't make sense, Makoto spoke up and ended up looking at Hanabi, knowing that Minato would pass the test, questioning whether she or Hanabi would accompany him. Hanabi also felt the gaze of her rival for the test and thought it would be either her and Minato or Makoto and Minato. Minato sighed, knowing the true nature of this test and disliking how the girls were looking at each other. He would have to change that as soon as the test started. Well, the test is straightforward, you can use everything against me, so come with the intention to kill me. Jiraiya put away the bells and spoke seriously, then moved to the middle of the field. Let's begin, you can come at me whenever you want. As soon as he said these words, Hanabi and Makoto quickly jumped to the trees. Jiraiya looked at the girls with approval but saw Minato standing in the same spot, looking at him. You're not planning to hide? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Not yet, Minato replied calmly. Then you. He was going to say, but suddenly, Minato disappeared from the spot. Jiraiya was shocked when he saw him appear right in front of him, not using the Raijin but Saru, one of the 6 styles of the Navy, catching Jiraiya off guard and forcing him into a defensive stance as he crossed his arms to defend against the boy's punch. Minato's punch connected with him, causing Jiraiya to be stunned once again, as he felt his body being thrown back, retreating several meters. Minato did not attack further, waiting for his sensei to absorb what had just happened. This kid, what strength? Is he like Tsunade? Jiraiya wondered, surprised at how powerful Minato's punch was. What he saw in the early training was just Minato holding back. He shook his hands, still feeling the impact, while looking at Minato more carefully. The girls just watched from afar, a bit surprised as well. Minato cracked a small smile at Jiraiya. Sensei, don't be so distracted, let's fight. That should be my line. Kid. Jiraiya murmured, now getting more serious. Minato thought to start just with taijutsu, then once again use Saru to appear in front of Jiraiya. What technique is this? He wondered, now more prepared for Minato, began to defend against the aggressive attacks of the boy. He's not like Tsunade, he's not using his chakra to strengthen his body. What kind of monster body is this? Jiraiya finally realized Minato was using only his physical strength in the fight. Minato had his own style as he trained, trying to land punches, hooks, and elbows on Jiraiya with some footwork, but his punch was his arms as he tried to get past the elite Jonin's defenses. What kind of fight is this? Makoto murmured, watching Jiraiya use his palms against Minato's punches. She activated her Sharingan at that moment, closely watching the movements, while Hanabi wasn't far behind activating her Byakugan. Minato tried to punch at Minato from the side of his face, while Jiraiya moved his neck and dodged, trying to hit Minato with a kick, which he used his other hand to defend in the adult's leg, and saw that Jiraiya tried to hit him with his free hands as soon as he got a stance for it. Minato disappeared into the air, making Jiraiya hit the air. Up. Jiraiya quickly looked for Minato using his body downwards as he prepared to hit Jiraiya, but Jiraiya saw that something like that would be slow, as gravity wouldn't give much speed. Even so, he's coming down fast, faster than he should, that means he has weights. Jiraiya was analyzing Minato, becoming even more fascinated by the kid. However, Minato used his unique technique he had been training for weeks, Jeppo, propelling his foot in the air. Jiraiya was caught by the impulse of the boy, and Minato landed a punch on his face at that moment. Did he hit him? Hanabi murmured from afar, surprised. However, Jiraiya, falling backward while receiving the blow, turned his body into smoke, revealing a log in his place. What was that? How did he descend so fast? Jiraiya commented as he appeared on the other side, I saw his feet making a movement, but that's not possible. For Jiraiya, Minato was a big puzzle, and he had to quickly become alert. Because as soon as Jiraiya used substitution, Minato already knew where he was with his observation haki and used Jeppo while still in the air with Saru, heading towards the elite Jonin. Jiraiya once again had to go into defensive mode as the boy caught him by surprise, but he also knew that Minato was some kind of strange sensor, so he managed to handle the attack better. The girls still hadn't made any moves, fascinated by the taijutsu fight that was happening and Minato's strange techniques. The fight continued, and Jiraiya began to become more aggressive too, making Minato feel pressure. He might have an alien body, but he was still fighting a powerful figure of this world.
Jiraiya kept attacking him while he used Saro multiple times to dodge attacks when he felt the pressure from the opponent.
You really have an interesting technique, kid. I've never seen taijutsu like this since I noticed you don't use chakra and your body is extremely strong. You have potential, but you're not there yet, he said, pleased, and increased his aggressiveness with his taijutsu even more, making Minato retreat further. Jiraiya found an opening in the boy and landed a hit on his stomach, making Minato fall backwards, where he didn't even have time to use substitution. He stood firm to not turn into light, because even receiving a kick in the stomach, his body was still very resistant. He fell back and jumped up, landing on a sturdy branch of the tree. That was cool, sensei, Minato said with a small smile. While Jiraiya looked at him curiously, since the boy just rubbed his stomach, not seeming to feel his hit much.
You don't seem to be finished,
Jiraiya said, and Minato nodded.
I'll fight with everything I have now, sensei.
Let's see if you can handle my taijutsu, he spoke and made a hand sign, or hidden seals and weights appeared on his hands and legs, since he didn't like showing them here and decided to hide them. So you were using weights, let's see how much then, Jiraiya spoke, not moving from his spot. Minato removed the weights, while the girls looked on with their special eyes, quite interested. Minato removed 4 weights, taking 2 in each of his hands, until finally dropping them on the ground. The weights didn't seem to follow physics because as soon as they left Minato's hands, they flew to the ground with such speed that the next moment, the ground exploded, cracking everything within about 10 meters.
Jiraiya. Hanabi. Mikoto. This can't be serious.
Jiraiya murmured a bit alarmed inside. Minato felt the tree shaking and even falling due to the impact on the ground.
Let's start, sensei,
he said with an excited smile while landing on the cracked ground.
Chapter 72 Bell Test 02. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 36.
Minato faced Jiraiya as he took up a fighting stance, now ready to battle at a new level of taijutsu, especially since he had over 10,000 kilograms weighing on his body.
Before Jiraiya could initially react, Minato vanished from his spot, sprinting to Jiraiya's left side and then to his right flank.
Jiraiya quickly caught on to what he was doing and turned his body swiftly, with Minato materializing by his side while dodging the boy's punch.
Sensei, in front of you.
Minato spoke and disappeared with Saro and his physical strength, reappearing elsewhere, leaving Jiraiya dazed. Minato punched Jiraiya head-on, forcing him to cross his arms with no time to react, as the punch hit him and he immediately felt the force against his arms, feeling his body being thrown back like a missile. Jiraiya flew looking surprised.
This brat, what kind of monster are you with just that body strength?
He murmured internally. His body flew until he spun in the air and landed on the ground, his feet still dragging until he stabilized himself. Jiraiya took his eyes off Minato for a millisecond to land, which was enough time for him to refocus on Minato's position and discover that he had vanished.
Where is he?
He wondered, looking all around, until he directed his gaze upward.
Minato had leaped into the air and used Jeppo to hover over Jiraiya at that moment. How is he doing that? Hanabi commented. Exclamation point. Makoto's eyes widened, as not even her Sharingan could replicate what Minato did, wondering how it was possible.
Minato quickly descended on Jiraiya with his super speed and Saro. Jiraiya turned his head and his hair began to grow, reaching out to Minato, who stepped in the air and dodged the hair attack from Jiraiya.
This same technique, so he's done this before, how can he do this?
Jiraiya commented as his hair missed the target. Minato continued descending and Jiraiya prepared once again for the fight. He retreated before Minato reached the ground, but as soon as the boy touched down, he exploded with impact force and didn't allow Jiraiya to get far away. Soon, fists and palms began to clash against each other, entering a frenzy at high speed. Jiraiya felt his initial disadvantage and began to distribute chakra through his limbs, quickly starting to match Minato's pure physical strength. What followed was both moving their arms at high speed with the explosive sound of impact, creating wind and destroying the terrain as one moved towards the other.
Incredible.
Hanabi commented, not even she could take on that taijutsu chaos, while Makoto, elsewhere, studied both their movements to copy with her Sharingan. Kid, you're good and I might be faster with my experience, but this ability of yours is really hard to deal with. Jiraiya might have had the advantage over Minato with his experience as an elite jonin and student of the Hokage, but Minato still had his observation haki, which prevented him from finding an opening in the boy's stance, as Minato could see where all of Jiraiya's strikes were heading.
"You're good too, sensei," Minato said with a small smile, keeping up the pace and the exchange of blows.
The explosive sound of the taijutsu fight continued for the next 4 minutes as Minato impressively kept up the pace against Jiraiya without retreating.
"Sensei, can we move to the next level?" Minato calmly asked, dodging a palm strike while trying to land a kick that Jiraiya blocked with his elbow. Are you sure?"
Though Jiraiya was initially surprised by Minato as they continued to exchange blows, exploding the ground around them, he had gotten used to the boy, but could no longer hit him, which was impressive for an 11-year-old.
Minato did not respond beyond maintaining his small smile.
He dodged a strike from Jiraiya and took a few steps back, crossing his fingers. He created multiple shadow clones around Jiraiya, who looked around as numerous smokes began to appear and 30 Minato clones emerged. All 30 Minatos looked at Jiraiya, taking up combat positions as they started to advance the next moment.
"This is getting bad,"
Jiraiya had to admit, seeing all those clones rushing towards him. He quickly felt attack from all sides as he began to feel the pressure. The clones were not as fast as the original, but they retained a certain percentage of the main body's strength, and Jiraiya was lucky they weren't using Sorrow, otherwise, he would be in trouble now. They began exchanging blows while surrounded by the crowd, spinning and kicking through the clones' openings with a bit of ease.
"This can't go on,"
he had to admit, losing time while dealing with these clones. He crossed his arms, and 10 Jiraiya appeared, engaging in combat with the other side. The next moment, the crowd of clones began to fight among themselves, with Jiraiya taking the advantage, while Minato's clones vanished into smoke every now and then. At that moment, Jiraiya felt something coming and looked to one side of the crowd.
There were 3 Minatos, performing rapid handjutsus, this brat. He quickly let his mind work to avoid Minato's next attack.
He backed away with another 3 clones, making hand seals, while the clones continued to fight among the 3 Minatos and 3 Jiraiyas. Minato finished his jutsus, and each clone released an element, with the original unleashing the Uchiha technique, using the horse seal.
"Fire style, great annihilation,"
he shouted, blowing out fire that exploded from his mouth. One clone beside used Tiger Ox Dog Rabbit Snake.
"Wind style."
Great destruction, creating a large wind in front of him, merging with the fire and enhancing it. The last clone using Tiger Snake Dragon.
"Lightning style, thundering wave."
This last jutsu was another creation of Minato's using the fire element style, where he launched lightning by blowing it from his mouth.
This technique concentrates a large amount of Raiton chakra in the lungs and related chakra channels to the mouth.
By releasing this concentrated chakra, the user expels a powerful wave of electrical energy, similar to a lightning dragon, that advances towards the target at great speed. This technique creates a vast wave of lightning that can be directed and controlled to a certain extent by the user, similarly to the control demonstrated in fire-style techniques, like the Ketan Gokaki no Jutsu. Minato had developed it on the southern coast and was using it for the first time, thinking of a technique that could launch lightning directly at an area. Besides the direct damage, it would also cause paralysis and could affect several unaware ninjas. The jutsu exploded quickly, the fire enhanced with wind and enveloped with lightning, like a tri-elemental tsunami. Minato couldn't even imagine how shocked the girls were seeing this. The level of that attack with multiple elements was bordering on an S-rank jutsu.
"He combined the technique I gave him as a gift?" Makoto murmured in shock, while the whole area lit up with the combined jutsus. Hanabi just looked dazed at it. "This brat. He's so dangerous,"
Jiraiya murmured, looking at the devastation starting in front of him, and had no choice but to create something similar, finishing the seals at that moment. His original spewed oil from his mouth, the right clone fire, and the left, wind.
Boiling oil bath.
Jiraiya created a combination that quickly joined together and formed a scalding sea moving against Minato's jutsu. The 2 waves quickly moved against each other, devastating everything in their path. The clones that were fighting were quickly enveloped from all sides and began to disappear without being able to react. Then there was the impact. Both Minato's combined jutsu and Jiraiya's combined jutsu collided against each other, creating a pressure wave in all directions, especially with high-temperature steam.
"I can't stay here," Hanabi alarmed and began to quickly retreat from the location. Makoto also knew it would be dangerous to stay and quickly moved away.
What happened in the area was a huge explosion while the steam began to burn all the forest around.
Boom!
Asterisk the explosive sound of the two techniques fighting against each other as everything turned white was heard throughout the village at that moment, with many ninjas wondering what was happening.
What's that?
Even Hiruzen, in his office, was surprised by the sound echoing in the sky and looked in that direction. What's happening there? He wondered, since he didn't have the crystal ball at that time.
Let's take a look, he said and quickly left through the window with some ambu.
Many ninjas ended up heading in that direction. After all, the sound was constant and explosive, a situation that no one could ignore, especially the Uchihas who were the police force of the village. As the ninjas approached, the two forces quickly continued to fight against each other, while the ground kept opening up from the explosion. My chakra is running out with my clones.
Minato could see that his clones could no longer continue casting the jutsu.
Hiruzen had arrived at that moment, looking surprised at this. He could combine jutsu like Minato's and Jiraiya's clones did, but to cause such destruction?
Is this an 11-year-old kid?
An Ambu exclaimed looking at Minato. They expected this from Jiraiya, but Minato, even though he had heard that he could cast multiple jutsus, was quite surprising.
What's that clone of his casting? Another Ambu asked looking at the innovative lightning jutsu Minato had created.
The boy created 2 A-rank jutsus, don't be surprised if he comes up with new jutsus. Hiruzen commented. Minato was considered as talented in creating jutsus as his own teacher, the second Hokage, who was a ninja scientist, who created several A-rank jutsus for the village. Meanwhile, further away, the girls also noticed the movement of new ninjas but stayed in their places.
A group with Sharingan also appeared.
They looked quite surprised at the forest being burned and the two waves crashing against each other at that moment. Ninjas from all over the village began to appear due to the devastation caused while neither Minato nor Jiraiya cancelled their jutsus. However, this quickly changed as Minato felt his clones running out of chakra in them. Jiraiya seemed to be going through the same, thus cancelling the jutsus on both sides. Everything was enveloped in steam, and the visibility was obscured for everyone. Besides the jutsus stopping, Jiraiya's oil being the most tangible, was the only one spreading throughout the place while bubbling with the high temperatures. Minato had to jump to the sky. Jiraiya also backed off. For all the spectators, almost no one could see what was happening in the midst of that outcome.
This kid, he never ceases to amaze me.
Jiraiya quickly landed in a safe place and looked attentively at the smoke, trying to find any movement from Minato.
He's up there.
An Uchiha commented using his Sharingan, and all the others turned their eyes to where he was pointing.
What is he doing? Another commented seeing the chakra growing in his hand like a ball.
Minato was in the air at that moment, creating a Rasengan, but not a normal one. After all, his blue chakra sphere kept growing bigger and bigger. Jiraiya was surprised when he saw the huge light above him. He's overdoing it. Jiraiya commented looking at the gigantic Rasengan as Minato began to point it at his sensei while descending. Minato launched his Udama Rasengan with a diameter of more than 5 meters, much larger than Naruto could produce. He wanted to see what Jiraiya would do to escape this, and also knowing that they had new spectators, so he wanted to show off a bit.
Chapter 73, Bell Test 03. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 36. This kid. He's going overboard.
Jiraiya commented, looking at the enormous chakra ball, wondering how that boy could create such a large Rasengan. On the other side, the ninjas watching were equally surprised by this.
Staring at the huge blue sphere in the air amid the battlefield steam.
He can make that technique grow so much, but he's using too much chakra. Hiruzen, while surprised by this, also reasoned that it wasn't a very smart move.
And indeed, it wasn't.
Minato just wanted to show off a bit, so he didn't hold back with his chakra. After all, this was a test and not a fight to the death. In the air, Minato spun his body and moved downward as he launched his sphere. Jiraiya, with no choice, began to create several seals and hit the ground while a series of symbols ran straight from his palm.
Summoning Jutsu,
he declared, and a huge smoke emerged exploding from that point.
Boom, asterisk.
A frog with a pinkish-purple color, not too big but the size of a house, appeared with one hand using a plate and the other a sort of fork/spear.
It found itself in a strange place in the first milliseconds. Gamaken. We need to defend against this attack,
Jiraiya said, and Minato approached with his jutsu. The young Gamaken quickly understood and placed his plate as a shield.
I'm a bit clumsy, but I'll try, he declared. Incredible. This Gamaken is so much smaller than the one I saw in the work. But it's quite interesting. Minato commented with an excited smile and launched his attack against his opponent.
As soon as the shield and the Udama Rasengan collided against each other, generating a force of impact.
Boom, asterisk.
The impact caused even the steam to fly away, revealing beyond the scorched ground like lava from the last attack, a semi-giant frog with Jiraiya on top and Minato on the other side launching his huge Rasengan.
He can generate that jutsu of that size? Hanabi commented from her distant hiding place. He has a jutsu that big? Mikoto also murmured.
She had not yet seen the Rasengan. Besides Mikoto, many Uchihas also looked at the confrontation from a distance surprised, like other ninjas who arrived at the site, some remnants of the village who did not leave it, and others who came to look for their teams.
The battle between the jutsu and the plate continued until Jiraiya noticed something.
The
plate is cracking? He said, stunned seeing the cracks growing there. Sorry. I think I'm messing up here, Gamaken said, feeling he was losing.
What followed was the plate cracking and immediately with the Rasengan hitting the frog, which flew backward while Jiraiya had no choice but to jump as his frog fell defeated flying into the forest. The impact of the enormous Rasengan made the ground explode, causing Jiraiya to recoil with the force of the impact while stones from the ground being destroyed flew in all directions, creating another huge explosion in that area.
Is this a genin test? What kind of fight is this? An Ambu commented next to the Hokage.
We could never expect a normal fight coming from that child. But this is really on another level, much more than I expected. The amount of chakra he has is much larger than we thought. Hiruzen spoke, but also knew that Minato must be at his limit.
He's coming this way, Makoto exclaimed as the forest was being destroyed with Gamaken's body going in their direction, raising all the trees. Boom, asterisk.
She jumped from her place as an uncontrollable cape continued tearing trees until it stopped a few hundred meters away, quite battered.
Man. I think I overdid it. Minato looked at that a bit sheepishly. Of all the toads, Gamaken was one of his favorites in the series. Seeing him being thrown like that was a bit hard to watch. I think I lost,
Gamaken said a bit shyly, as his body was all battered, before disappearing with an explosion of smoke. Jiraiya landed on the ground attentive to any movement from Minato, who fell within the smoke generated by the explosion's impact, while pieces of the plate were falling shattered in the air. Minato jumped from the smoke and touched those pieces while they were suspended with his feet to create momentum before advancing against Jiraiya. Jiraiya prepared himself as Minato was already upon him, but was quicker as he grabbed the boy's neck. Jiraiya quickly noticed something strange, since Minato was caught so easily, but in the next moment, the boy's body began to electrify.
A shadow clone with lightning?
He said in his last moment, having no time to react even with a substitution jutsu, as the shock immediately caught him the next second. Jiraiya felt his body paralyzed, and a new Minato emerged from the smoke quickly, his goal being the bells on his waist. Seeing this, Jiraiya tried to react, but Minato was already upon him.
Raising his hand, Minato was very close to the bells while Jiraiya was still affected by the paralysis. These bells will be mine,
he thought, already putting his fingers on the object and just a little more he could pull them. His haki alerted danger, and he saw Jiraiya's hair expand and turn into spikes, before shooting at him.
Minato quickly moved his feet to escape the point-blank attack.
He took a few steps back and saw that he couldn't reach the bells at that moment, so he quickly grabbed some kunais and threw them at Jiraiya, who had to deal with them with some difficulty while still feeling his paralysis. With Jiraiya busy with the kunais, Minato launched smoke bombs on the ground. He hid for the first time. Jiraiya was surprised by Minato's move to hide, as he could no longer sense his presence nearby. Minato continued jumping between the trees, moving a bit away from Jiraiya at that moment.
My chakra is at its limit,
he murmured, but didn't seem too tired besides a slight change in his breathing. He still had his physical energy, but wouldn't use it with so many eyes on him. He didn't mind being observed, moreover, he didn't seem worried about having spent a large amount of chakra at this moment. He knew the test was a team effort, so he would wait for the girls to act before talking to them and using his attack in conjunction with the sensei. As Minato found a place to recover, the devastated training field fell silent with some smoke coming out from parts of the ground melted by Minato and Jiraiya's jutsu while a huge hole appeared due to the last attack. Jiraiya walked to the center of the place that visually looked chaotic, but in silence. I had to spend a lot of chakra with this kid. He really exceeded all my expectations. Jiraiya murmured, the level of Minato's chakra was beyond a jonin. Although he thought the boy was reckless in launching so many powerful jutsus, he was still pleased with the demonstration of his power. If Minato heard these thoughts, he would wonder how Jiraiya would react to his more powerful jutsus that he hadn't shown or even his light fruit. Jiraiya had already recovered from the lightning running through his body and was waiting for a new move from his students. Even though he was not at 100%, he was confident he could still handle all of them. The girls didn't stay behind. Mikoto made her move. After escaping from a giant frog flying in her direction, she didn't want to fall behind. Activating her Sharingan, she began to throw kunais at Jiraiya, who quickly realized and stood still waiting until the last moment to minimally move his body so as not to be hit. The kunais continued flying towards Jiraiya, until he noticed a different one. A paper bomb. He commented, as soon as the kunai hit the ground, it exploded near Jiraiya, who emerged from the smoke unscathed and looked towards where Mikoto was shooting her kunais. The chief's daughter is going to fight now, said an Uchiha. After seeing that boys fight before, I doubt she can do something similar, another Uchiha admitted. Mikoto emerged from the trees and showed her Sharingan of Atomio. She hadn't evolved them in years, but had gotten accustomed to using them well, better than Akame, the other Uchiha boy. Come on, little girl, Jiraiya commented, and Mikoto launched herself against the elite Jonin. She crossed her fingers and 4 clones appeared, heading towards Jiraiya, and a taijutsu fight began while all her clones tried to hit him. Jiraiya managed quite well with all 5 Uchihas, dodging and attacking, while hitting the clones, making them disappear in smoke. Why am I going in the opposite direction now? Jiraiya realized he was retreating to the side where Mikoto had come from. There were only 3 Mikotos now. Mikoto had done that on purpose, since she wanted Jiraiya to go to that side. Hitting the other 2 clones, making them disappear, the original Mikoto threw a kunai with a paper bomb, causing Jiraiya to retreat. As soon as it touched the ground behind him, he saw that he had fallen into a trap set by the girl, because the place had other kunais with paper bombs, which she had placed while running towards Jiraiya and using her clones as a disguise. Smart, Jiraiya had to admit as the paper bombs began to explode. Boom! Asterisk. Boom! Asterisk. Boom! Asterisk. Boom! Asterisk. Boom! Asterisk. As Jiraiya retreated from the explosions, new detonations occurred. Did she get him? An Uchiha at a distance asked. No. I doubt Jiraiya would fall for something like that, another concluded. Jiraiya indeed emerged unscathed from the attack and saw a huge fireball heading his way. Quickly making a seal, Doton, Doryohiki, he created a wall of stone with the fire exploding against it. Seeing this, Mikoto threw 4 kunais to both sides. They clashed against one another, making them go towards Jiraiya inside the wall, a technique she learned from Minato. This? Jiraiya was surprised by this. He grabbed a kunai from his pocket and hit one while dodging another with a paper bomb. Boom! Asterisk. He was caught and came out the other side with a burned sleeve. These brats nowadays, in my time with Tsunade and Orochimaru, we weren't this dangerous. Hokage-sama. It seems that the elite class program is really a success, an Umbu had to admit. Yes, it certainly is full of talented children. He sighed, but spoke with satisfaction. Mikoto wouldn't stop being aggressive now. She launched a series of seals.
Katan, Goryoka no Jutsu. She took a deep breath before blowing. Jiraiya noticed the glow coming from behind the smoke and a dragon made of flames roared towards him. This technique is much more dangerous than the last, he said, and began his hand seals as well. Doton, Dosakiryu. The earth dragon emerged from the ground, racing against the fire dragon. Both collided, causing an explosion, but still, the flames overcame the earth and raced towards Jiraiya, who just jumped dodging. Makoto appeared right after, using a kunai and making Jiraiya use his kunai to fend off the girl. They exchanged blows, and Jiraiya realized he had fallen into a genjutsu while thinking Makoto would attack from the side, but it was an illusion while the real one launched a frontal attack. But as a ninja sensor specialized in espionage, Jiraiya wouldn't fall for something like that, making him kick the girl before she could attack him, causing her to fall backward and jump to the trees, wanting to hide after all her failed attempts. It seems the last one is coming, don't disappoint me, Jiraiya commented, and on the other side, he saw the Hyuga collapsing on the ground with her Byakugan activated. Chapter 74, Bell Test 04. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 36. Hanabi gazed intently at Jiraiya. She prepared a kunai in one hand and dashed towards Jiraiya, throwing the kunai at the man while he dodged with ease. She quickly closed in with her palms, using the Hyuga style, but her opponent was still Jiraiya. She's not going to fare well, Minato murmured, watching the fight from a distance. The Hyuga style was quite lacking when they used hand-to-hand combat, while Minato and Makoto had a good arsenal for more distant combat, but with Hanabi, her elemental jutsus were at most medium range. Jiraiya began to engage in taijutsu combat, dodging all of the girl's attacks. She dodged while chakra emanated from her palms. It seems the Hyuga aren't so impressive after all, and Uchiha commented, looking at the girl with some disdain. Hanabi became frustrated with this. Unlike Minato and even Makoto, he was conducting a level of fight so inferior that Jiraiya needed only to move his body. Can you do better than this, little girl? Jiraiya commented. Hanabi switched her attack to distance herself, while she began to make hand seals, boroks and a few more seals. Doton. Retsudo Tensho. Hanabi touched the ground and it began to tremble and break. Jiraiya saw this with a smile as he jumped away and started creating hand seals. Snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Jiraiya spat fire over the girl. Hanabi saw this fire and began to spin chakra around her hands. This? Hiruzen was surprised what the girl was going to do. Jiraiya also saw this with satisfaction, as the flames enveloped the girl, and she wrapped her body around a circle of chakra, protecting herself from the flames. Boom! Asterisk. The flames finally ended, and Hanabi was a bit tired while in the middle of the flames. She looked still somewhat frustrated. She clearly did not have a good arsenal to fight against Jiraiya. However, before she could realize, Minato appeared above the girl, and before she could react, he picked her up by the waist and jumped to the forest. What is he planning now? Jiraiya commented, watching Minato disappear. Meanwhile, Hanabi wanted an answer for this. What are you doing? She said, looking at Minato jumping between the trees. Be quiet, we're going to meet up with Makoto. Minato spoke and continued towards Makoto in a corner of the forest. He headed for that corner while Makoto could not stay hidden from Minato, who had detected her the whole time, so she calmly waited until Minato landed in front of her. What are you doing? She asked. Listen. Minato spoke, placing Hanabi in the tree. This test is more than it seems. He began. What do you mean? It seems simple to me. We have to get the bells and only 2 of us can pass. Hanabi spoke with a tone quite frustrated still. Makoto was silent. You're wrong, there isn't a test that only passes 2 people and fails the third. In fact, Jiraiya put this condition so that we compete against each other, but this exercise serves to work on our teamwork, overcoming our difficulties. Do you really think we can fight individually against an elite jonin? Minato spoke. Of course, if he wanted to get the bells, it would be quite easy with his light fruit, but what would be the point of exposing himself in this way and not being able to mature his future companions? Makoto was silent along with Hanabi, listening to Minato. Do you think we can do this together? She asked. Yes. Listen well, we have to make a plan. He started.
Meanwhile, in the destroyed training field, Jiraiya stood calmly, and to the new spectators, he seemed to have everything under control, but this could not be said of his interior.
Damn, I spent so much chakra on these brats. I'm at my limits already.
If I were on a battlefield, I'd have to use that ugly appearance of Sage Mode. Now he could finally breathe after facing all those little monsters, even though Hanabi knew advanced techniques from her clan that she shouldn't be using at her age or because she was from the secondary family. He hoped the kids would stop pressuring him as they had been. He was murmuring internally when he felt something in the vegetation hundreds of meters away, and a shuriken flew towards him, spinning in his direction. He jumped, dodging it, but the person who threw it from the forest clenched their teeth and pulled their hand, showing for the first time wires connected to the weapon. The weapon disintegrated, and Jiraiya, anticipating this, began to move his body in the air, dodging the projectiles coming towards him.
The two projectiles passed by Jiraiya, but soon transformed, and smoke revealed two Minatos, surprising the Jonin as they approached Jiraiya. That was a smart move.
Hiruzen looked on with a raised eyebrow but pleased.
But they are working together, he observed.
Hello, Sensei. Minato announced with a smile and punched Jiraiya in the air, who caught Minato's punch, but the latter made a move towards him, while grabbing the other hand and placing it on the hand where Jiraiya held the sack, pulling towards him. Jiraiya found himself being pulled, creating an opening for the other clone, who was going for the attack, but Minato could do nothing but punch Jiraiya, which wouldn't be very effective. However, Minato had anticipated this, and with a slight smile, something happened. With a flash, while Jiraiya was looking at the clone expecting the attack, it disappeared, and another person took its place.
That's it. Jiraiya was stunned as the palm flew towards him.
Hanabi hit Jiraiya's shoulder without him being able to act while still caught with the other clone, feeling his left limb becoming numb as he lost the ability to move on that side.
What was that? And Anbu asked, a question that everyone had since Hanabi appeared out of nowhere.
Even Jiraiya, still dazed with his arm being affected by the Hyuga technique, was also wondering what happened there. This technique was unique to Minato, as he had managed to develop the Flying Thunder God to level 2 in recent weeks, being able to switch places between his originals and a person with his seal, which was the case for Hanabi with the seal planted on her body before Minato acted with his original. He had teleported to where Hanabi was, next to Makoto. However, as soon as he appeared there, he felt a great exhaustion in his chakra, and even his physical body was affected as he fell to his knees.
Minato? Makoto asked worriedly, approaching as she crouched near him. I'm okay. I think,
he said with some difficulty. After some effort, he managed to get the strength to stand up. Makoto quickly helped him up gently.
Minato was thinking of something else to notice the girl by his side. This jutsu, it's really hard to execute. I almost passed out.
He murmured a bit frustrated, but relieved that his plan had worked. He received the memories from his clone that had grabbed Jiraiya after being hit by a kick from him while disappearing into the distance.
Jiraiya landed on the ground with a limp arm.
Looking at this limb in surprise, he turned to Hanabi, who had landed on the ground still with her Byakugan activated, ready to continue the fight.
Since when can you Hyuga put a limb to sleep? He asked, a bit surprised.
This is a technique that I developed myself. It not only hits the chakra point but creates a great stress in the muscle area. The effect is this: you won't be able to use both hands for jutsus. She spoke calmly. This was her unique work.
Incredible.
This girl may not be as outstanding as her companions, but she is certainly a genius as well. Hiruzen commented with interest.
Jiraiya recognized this too. He was in a bit of a difficult situation at the moment, and saw other movements coming towards him.
I'm out of chakra, so we can take advantage while Sensei can't use seals with both hands. Let's fight with our taijutsu.
Minato said as he advanced with Makoto by his side. Hanabi was not left behind, following her too.
Jiraiya found himself surrounded by 3 genin fighting him in close combat with one useless arm, feeling pressure from all sides. After all, he was fighting against 2 dojutsu users who could even predict his movements, the Sharingan much more so than the Byakugan, and there was Minato who had this ability naturally, better than the girls and without any other explanation. After all,
Minato had always been a mystery to everyone. He's in trouble. And Umbu commented. It's true. Ha ha.
Hiruzen had to laugh as Minato used his legs and his only arm to deal with a bunch of kids jumping on him like flies and making him retreat. When he conducted this same test, it ended with Jiraiya trying to play a bunch of tricks and failing miserably, with only Tsunade and Orochimaru getting the bells. But he was seeing a different outcome here. After all, they were all working together, although it left many open questions in the Hokage's mind, like how Minato had swapped places with Hanabi, but he just appreciated the youth of the leaf, even though one was an Uchiha.
This way I'm going to lose,
he thought, retreating while receiving a kick from Minato in the back and a palm strike from Hanabi in the stomach along with an elbow from Makoto, making him fall back rolling before getting up. But as soon as he expected more attacks from the trio, he found himself free for the first time and looked at a distance. They weren't moving anymore while displaying satisfied smiles. His hand instinctively went to his waist, finally feeling the absence of something important. His gaze returned to Minato smiling and raising his hand with the two bells. These kids, they managed it in such a short time, Jiraiya admitted, but opened a satisfied smile. He approached still with his limp left hand. Well, you did it, however, Minato has both bells. He began, looking at the girls. Who will pass with you, Minato? You have to choose one of the two, he said in the end. Makoto and Hanabi were not bothered by this, while Minato just shrugged and tossed the two bells to each of them. You see, Sensei, they have the bells. If we don't pass together, then I'll go back to the academy.
You can fail me,
he spoke, crossing his arms. Why am I still playing this? It's obvious you already know about the real test, he admitted with a sigh and turned to everyone with a satisfied smile. Anyway, congratulations, you've passed the test. Welcome to Team 7. Jiraiya declared with all the spectators at a distance listening to this with some emotion. Whether it was the surprise of all three being incredible for their ages, the mystery and inexplicable questions in the middle of the fight, or even the teamwork effort that the young ones executed. Chapter 75 Advice from Mito. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 36. Minato looked on with some pleasure and returned to his companions with a small smile. It seems we've made it, he said. Yes, Makoto commented, satisfied. Hanabi just nodded with a sigh. Jiraiya, still trying to move his arm, returned to the three children. Well, since you've passed, how about we go celebrate? Your new sensei will pay for everything, Jiraiya said, and the three exchanged looks before nodding. Leaving the devastated training field behind, the curious ninjas nearby also began to withdraw. Minato, Hanabi, and Makoto left with Jiraiya for the village, some of their clothes dirty, but no one minded after the test. Heading to Ramen Ichiraku, they sat at a table, eating their ramen satisfactorily. You really knew how to handle me. I haven't even regained movement in my arm yet, Jiraiya commented while eating his ramen with just his right hand. We were lucky, Minato commented as he picked up another bunch of noodles and put it in his mouth. Even so, you really did very well, much better than I thought. I'm happy to have this team made of prodigies, he said, laughing. Will we have missions to do, sensei? Hanabi asked. That? Jiraiya scratched his head. We will have some tomorrow, he said. Because I think these missions might be something like catching runaway cats and cutting grass, Minato murmured. That can't be serious, Makoto spoke up. Ha 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 ha. We'll see tomorrow, he said, a bit nervous, as he didn't want to disappoint his students on the first day. However, Minato knew it seemed like a rite of passage, doing D-rank missions. Some time later, they all finished and said goodbye to the young Tucci. Minato returned to his apartment and saw Kushina waiting for him. Minato! She was outside the building waiting for him. As soon as she saw him, she greeted him quickly. Kushina, he greeted her. How was it? You said you had a test, did you pass? She asked, and Minato nodded. Yes, we managed to deal with the sensei. We'll start our first missions tomorrow, he said and looked at a basket she was holding in her hands. What's this? Kushina seemed a bit embarrassed. I brought some sandwiches for us to eat, she commented, avoiding his gaze. I see. Let's go inside then, he said and started heading inside with Kushina following him.
Minato found Kushina's behavior strange, but not bad. They entered, and she placed the basket on the table. Minato had already eaten ramen before coming here, yet, he picked up the sandwiches Kushina had placed on the table. They ate quietly while Minato shared some details about the test. Is it true that you managed to numb your teacher's arm? She commented, laughing.
It wasn't easy, I had to use all my chakra to do something like that, but we succeeded, he said, laughing. So you'll be going to war soon? She asked, a bit sad. Maybe, however, we'll stay in Konoha for a while before we head to the borders, you know we have to do some D-rank missions. He said, trying to cheer her up.
D-rank, like cleaning roofs and gutters of the village? She asked, a bit more cheerful. Catching cats and other things. He also laughed. That seems fun, Databane, she commented, and a silence took over the place. How's your training going? Minato asked.
I'm learning the mastery of Fuinjutsu now, but it will take years to master, she said regarding her current training with Mito-sama.
I understand.
I'm sure you will be the best user in the art of seals after Mito that Konoha could have, Minato said with a small smile.
I'll try. Kushina became a bit sadder, remembering that Mito's time was running out. Seeing Kushina's sadness once again, Minato tried to change the subject.
Anyway, that headband looks really good on you, he said.
Are you sure I can keep it? You won't have any problems with that? Kushina asked.
I asked for it from my new teacher, Jiraiya-sensei will give me a new one tomorrow, he said, and Kushina nodded. They continued talking about more mundane things while Minato enjoyed eating the sandwiches Kushina had prepared. After a while, Kushina had to go back home, and Minato was also quite exhausted. She said goodbye to him, and he quickly took a shower and jumped into his bed, intending to regain all his strength by the next day.
Meanwhile, Kushina was walking home alone, until she finally arrived at the Senju complex without any trouble. Welcome back, Kushina-sama.
Some servants greeted her, and Kushina, never getting used to it, just nodded and continued to the main building.
More strength.
She heard a stern voice. I'm trying, but it's hard, mother.
Another young voice responded.
You're too rebellious to dye your hair, don't act weak.
Tsunade complained in a stern tone. Kushina saw Tsunade and her daughter training in the courtyard, while Tsuna tried her best in a chakra control and seals exercise. Her mother was quite stern. You're finally back.
On the balcony of the house, Mito was watching the mother and daughter training while leaning on her cane.
Kushina nodded. It was late afternoon and the sunset had started on the horizon.
I'm here, she commented.
Come, little one. Let's leave the two to train and talk for a bit, Mito spoke, and Kushina nodded.
They didn't go directly inside the house, but Mito took Kushina to another place on the Senju grounds.
You've never been here, have you? Mito asked. No.
Kushina looked curiously at the tower in front of her, which stretched tens of meters off the ground.
Then let's go inside, Mito said, and Kushina followed inside. The first thing Kushina noticed inside was the spiral design on the floor.
This is our symbol, she commented, looking at the engraved design.
It's true, this is the symbol of our clan. Mito commented.
However, it can't be more than paint stuck on the floor, she added.
Kushina just looked at her, saying nothing, but her gaze was questioning what the elder had said.
Mito noticed her look and understood, as her gaze went above them. Tell me, child, she pointed upwards. What do you see above us?
Kushina raised her head and saw a staircase circling all the way to the top of the tower.
A whirlpool as well, she exclaimed, but with that, Mito just smiled and said, You are wrong, child.
This is a spiral. A spiral? Kushina asked curiously.
Come with me, she said to the little girl, and they went to the start of the stairs.
Yes, a spiral. Unlike the whirlpool that was on the ground, like a 2D drawing.
A spiral is a three-dimensional form, Mito spoke as she began climbing the stairs with Kushina looking curiously, wanting more answers about what she was hearing or why Mito had taken her here.
You see, in the spiral as it is, at each window we have a different landscape.
The higher we climb, Mito commented and pointed to a window. Kushina looked surprised, seeing that they were climbing higher and could see the village expanding below them, but nothing compared to what she had seen on the Hokage's head, with Minato. You know, Kushina, Mito started again, you will take my place one day, she spoke. Kushina became saddened at this moment, looking down and murmuring, do you think I will be able to master the Nine Tails? Will I be okay with it? All humans are vessels, Kushina. We, more than others, since we are Jinchurikis, but all are filled with other things. And for us, there is one thing more important than anything else we must have. With it, we can survive any challenge we face in our lives, Mito spoke calmly, as they continued climbing the stairs. Something we need, Kushina looked at Mito, curious, while looking at more and more stairs as they climbed. Yes, and for me, that thing I find above this spiral, she commented, as more windows appeared for Kushina. I have faith that when you climb your own spiral, you will find the same thing that I did, she said as they reached the last part, reaching the top. Mito approached a door and opened it. The first thing Kushina saw was the rocks of the Hokages, carved on one side, and behind her was the village. Incredible, I've never seen this before, she commented, surprised by this place, as Mito walked forward and Kushina enjoyed the new landscape. But her gaze returned to Mito, still curious about everything she had talked about. But I don't understand what you mean, when there's something up here that fills you? She asked. Mito gave a small smile and looked ahead, where the statue of Hashirama was. As a Jinchuriki, little Kushina, we need to be filled with the strongest feeling in this world, love. When I see Hashirama, I remember everything we went through together, that is what strengthens me and keeps me here until my last breath, before I meet him again in the other world, she commented with a nostalgic look in her eyes, longing to see the man she loved again. Love, Kushina also looked at the statue, trying to understand these words. You know my time is ending and you will take my place, but remember that you must also be filled with this feeling. And you're lucky to find it so early, aren't you? Mito smiled as she turned her gaze back to the young one. Kushina became embarrassed as her face turned red, but she didn't say anything, just looked down, trying to avoid Mito's gaze. No matter what happens, Kushina. If you are filled with love, even with the QB inside you, you can still have a happy life. And I wish that for you, and that boy, she said, leaving Kushina even more embarrassed. Don't be so embarrassed, I know the boy loves you too, even though I think you're not the only one. Even so, I'm sure you will be happy, Mito spoke calmly. Kushina, despite having heard these words, still nodded and looked at the stones of the Hokages again, but didn't stop until she passed by Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, stopping at the part of the stone where a face had not yet been built, imagining them climbing this tower again one day, finding the image of Minato in that place, as her own spiral as Mito had hers. Chapter 76, Mission Rank S01. Third-person POV. Konoha, Year 36. The following day had arrived in Konoha, as cats got up, stretching on their walls, and the shops opened while the shopkeepers said their good morning to the first people passing by on the street, while some children went for a walk with their parents. Everything seemed peaceful in Konoha, but in a corner of the village, a black cat sped by, followed by 3 other shadows as they chased after it. The cat was swift, going over walls, houses, sewers, gutters, trying to escape its pursuers as it went through every small place and tried to flee. Behind the cat, on one side, there was Hanabi with her white cloak, while Makoto was on the other side with her dark clothing, and Minato in the middle, with his clothing both dark and white, with a dark headband on his forehead, one that Jiraiya had given him on this very day, as the boy had requested. They chased after the cat until they finally entered the training forest, while Minato wondered how a cat could be so fast. He looked at Hanabi at that moment, trying to devise a plan. Can you use your earth jutsu? He asked, now being in an area where they could use their jutsus without affecting the villagers. She nodded and quickly jumped to the ground while already performing the hand seals and slamming her palms on the ground, making a giant wall appear in front of the fleeing cat, which curiously as it ran, narrowed its eyes and began to jump over the wall part like a ninja. What is this cat? Has it been trained or something? Makoto couldn't help but murmur beside. Damn, it's going to escape. Minato commented, and not wanting to use much of his powers, he looked at Makoto and had an idea. Makoto, trust me, he simply said. As for the girl, she looked bewildered by Minato's random words, but quickly realized as Minato grabbed her, making her spin.
What are you doing?"
she exclaimed, but Minato said nothing until he released her towards the wall.
"Catch the cat. You can do it," Minato simply said, throwing Makoto in that direction.
Minato did this because he was able to support himself in the air with Jeppo, using his superhuman strength to launch the girl like a cannonball onto the cat. She flew with such speed that she had to activate her Sharingan. The cat, surprised, as they passed the wall, already victorious in escaping its pursuers, got a shock, while the Uchiha girl, already on top of it. It didn't even have time to react as she grabbed it by the neck and flew into the forest, landing on a tree, which she buried with the force of her impact on the wood. The cat was startled, trying to move, but Makoto looked at it with her Sharingan, causing it to fall into her Genjutsu. Minato and Hanabi arrived at the spot. Seeing the now unconscious cat, they seemed satisfied.
"I knew it, you did it," Minato said with a smile.
"You didn't have to throw me like that," she said, unsatisfied, but a bit shy with the attention.
"Hey, don't be so hard," Minato laughed, since he wanted to work as a team on this small rank D mission and was satisfied that they were able to execute it. "Well, anyway, we did it, right?" Hanabi spoke, crossing her arms.
A new person appeared above the wall that Hanabi raised from the ground and looked at the three with a smile.
Well, you did it," Jiraiya said, looking at everyone, satisfied.
"My congratulations," he finished with a smile. The three nodded silently while Jiraiya jumped from the earth wall and landed in front of the three genins.
"Well, you completed your first mission in less than an hour."
"I still remember that Tsunade, Orochimaru, and I took at least 2 hours to catch the first cat."
"Good teamwork," he said with satisfaction. None of the three responded and waited for the teacher to continue.
"If you finish this mission so quickly, then we can move on to the next," Jiraiya commented. "I hope it's not catching another cat," Makoto spoke with some dissatisfaction.
After Jiraiya asked Hanabi to lower the wall and leave the terrain intact, they moved to another location for the mission.
A few minutes later, the three found themselves removing weeds from a plot of land with their own hands, while Jiraiya sat on the roof, watching in silence.
"Sensei, is this really what we're supposed to be doing?"
"This has nothing to do with being a ninja," Hanabi complained. "Remember, a ninja does not complain about their mission, they simply execute it," Jiraiya said, laughing. Minato remained silent, already knowing how the process worked, so he did not complain.
"Why do we have to do this kind of work while Sensei just sits there watching us? He won't even let us use clones." Makoto couldn't help but complain, as they pulled weeds from their lot.
They spent some time clearing all the weeds, not using jutsus or anything of the sort, just manual labor, until they finally cleared the entire plot, and Jiraiya turned to them, clapping and congratulating them. While the girls remained dissatisfied, Minato still remained neutral. After the work, the resident who had requested this type of mission thanked everyone for the work as they left, and Jiraiya said it was nothing, and the girls complained that the sensei had done nothing but watch.
They went on to the next mission of the day.
Moments later, Minato was on a roof cleaning the gutter with a mop, while Makoto and Hanabi were also scattered around the place, doing the same type of work. As they cleaned the entire area, Jiraiya continued sitting on the chimney of the place, writing in a book, not really paying much attention to them this time, just occasionally checking if they were carrying out the mission.
"Hey, Minato, why aren't you dissatisfied? Look at us, we're trained ninjas, and we're here cleaning gutters." Makoto approached Minato and whispered, still quite dissatisfied, while Hanabi just looked a bit distant, waiting for Minato's opinion. "Well, it's the first day, I guess this is normal. It's very likely we'll be doing this the whole day, maybe even more days," Minato murmured. "What? You think we're going to spend more days like this? There's a war going on.
How can Sensei leave us here in the village, doing these things?"
Makoto couldn't help but complain.
Her father was at the war, along with many powerful ninjas from the clan, and she even knew that some rookies who studied with them, like Akame and another Uchiha, had already left for the war yesterday, while they were just there, doing useless work, in the girl's opinion.
"He's just doing this so we get used to this type of system."
"It won't take long, not with the war going on," Minato argued, and Makoto fell silent, returning to the task of cleaning gutters. Jiraiya had looked and listened to the entire conversation but said nothing, just continued writing in his book, not caring about the kids. The day continued, and more work like cleaning streets, helping elderly ladies cross places, carrying their shopping home, cleaning windows, and painting walls while they kept this routine for the entire day. At the end of the day, Jiraiya congratulated them for completing 20 rank D missions. "Well, for the first day, you guys were great," Jiraiya celebrated. But the children did not share the same enthusiasm, just looking on.
"Are we going to have this type of mission tomorrow too, Jiraiya-sensei?" Hanabi asked, hoping he would deny it.
"It's very likely," Jiraiya shrugged.
"I'll meet you at 6 o'clock again."
"Be ready," he said before leaving.
The girls looked frustrated, and Minato sighed. Maybe he could do something to change this.
Then he turned back to the girls before speaking.
"I'm going to talk to Sensei, see you tomorrow, goodbye," he said before jumping off the roof towards where Jiraiya had left.
Jiraiya, in the air, looked surprised, being followed by Minato, and stopped on top of a roof, waiting to see what the boy wanted.
Minato landed in front of him, and Jiraiya looked at him with a raised eyebrow.
"What do you want with me, that can't wait until tomorrow?" he asked.
"Sensei, I think I should show you something, but as long as you keep it a secret." Minato spoke calmly.
He trusted Jiraiya much more than he trusted any other ninja in the village to share some of his secrets, so he had no problem saying this. Jiraiya thought for a moment and, realizing that Minato was speaking with eyes shining with seriousness, he agreed. "All right, it sounds like a mystery, but I'll accept," Jiraiya said, also trusting Minato. After all, he believed this boy could be the child of prophecy, as he had already proven himself the best among the best that had emerged in this village. If anyone could change the ninja world, it would be him more than anyone else.
"Sensei, let's go to a specific location."
"I'm going to touch you, and don't be startled, I'm going to use the jutsu," Minato said, approaching Jiraiya, a bit confused. After all, he only remembered something that could do this kind of thing, and it was not a common technique. How could Minato say he would use it so casually unless he truly mastered it? What would leave Jiraiya so surprised that his mouth would hang open with an 11-year-old boy mastering an S-rank technique? Minato then touched Jiraiya's arm and executed the jutsu without making seals. Jiraiya and Minato disappeared from that rooftop in the late afternoon of the village. The next moment, Jiraiya found himself on a beach, looking around, perplexed. After Minato used his jutsu, he saw him fall to the ground, a bit tired.
"Are you okay?"
"Wait, did you use that technique?" he said, startled, now connecting the dots that he used that technique also in the bell test, not asking until now to not be impolite, even though he was still curious to know how Minato switched places with Hanabi. "Yes, this is the second Hokage's jutsu that I mastered some time ago, but it's a bit more developed. It not only teleports my main body and can take a person with me, but now I can switch places with objects and people with my marks, but it's extremely tiring. As you can see, we are on the south coast, hundreds of kilometers from Konoha, and taking a person consumed a lot of my chakra at this distance," Minato said with some difficulty.
"Wait, where are we? Are we in the south of the country?"
Jiraiya looked surprised.
"I know you're surprised." Minato spoke, trying to breathe.
"I come here to train every day when I can," he admitted.
"You know this is forbidden, right?"
Jiraiya asked, a bit worried, since this could even be considered desertion, and Minato could be suspected of treason, especially in the midst of a war.
"I am aware, that's why I wanted you to keep it a secret. I've come here many times to train. No one has ever caught me, and I trust you, Sensei."
"After all, the jutsus I do here, I couldn't show in Konoha," Minato spoke, and Jiraiya just nodded, trusting the boy's word and not asking further about the jutsus, already knowing one of them is the Flying Thunder God technique, which would turn the village upside down if they found out an 11-year-old boy mastered such a technique while no one else has managed to in almost 20 years. But still, he wanted to know why the boy brought him here. "Sensei, come with me," Minato said, leading him to a location where he kept a hidden box. He opened this box in front of Jiraiya, who looked around wondering if they really were where Minato said they were. There were scrolls in the box, and Minato began handing them to Jiraiya. Jiraiya stopped looking at the beach and took these scrolls, beginning to read.
"This. Minato, is this true?"
He read and looked at his student, stunned. After all, these scrolls were about a mission with the coalition of two villages wanting to kidnap the daimyo of the Land of Fire.
Minato just nodded and looked towards another area.
Sensei, I found a group of ninja from the Land of Wind here. I managed to repel them and get these scrolls.
It seems these groups are entering the country and are going to execute this mission to enrage Leaf in the war.
You're going to want to see this, he says before leading Jiraiya to the side where the battle took place, as they would have a long conversation.
Chapter 77, Mission Rank S02. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 36. What is this?
Jiraiya exclaimed, looking at the scene in front of him. The place where the ninja camp should have been was devastated, with sand covering it even more since Minato had launched his attack against the sand ninjas. The stench of decay filled the air, as Minato hadn't dealt with the bodies.
Jiraiya continued to survey the area with a deeply incredulous look. Vultures feasted on any cadaver they could find.
He pondered what kind of jutsu had been used here and, more importantly, how Minato had fought against so many ninjas alone. He already knew Minato had defeated a group of genin and shunin within the village with a jonin's help and had saved some bystanders. But there should have been jonin here as well, which was hard to believe the boy had handled alone.
What happened here, Minato? Jiraiya murmured, questioning.
While training, I discovered this location, so I launched an attack on them. In the end, I defeated them all, but I didn't leave anyone alive because I didn't know how to explain this situation, Minato spoke honestly, as there was no way for him to keep or take a prisoner.
I can't disagree with you, but what you did here?
Well, I shouldn't be so surprised after yesterday's bell test. You also know how to execute the second Hokage's technique, Jiraiya sighed and began to walk around the area, inspecting the aftermath. The sand was already covering most of the destruction.
You got the main box, then? He commented, and Minato nodded.
Yes, after fighting some jonin and shunin, I was fortunate to catch them off guard, as the scrolls weren't as well guarded as I expected.
They didn't seem to believe they could be attacked, Minato remarked.
I understand, you have valuable information, and you want me to take it as mine to avoid questions, Jiraiya concluded. Yes, I wouldn't usually speak of it since I don't want to compromise my position here, but it's still a very dangerous enemy operation, so I believe I can trust you, Sensei, Minato said, looking at Jiraiya. Jiraiya looked at him for a moment and nodded, agreeing with the boy. All right, I believe you, and you did very well here. I'll talk to my teacher. After all, we have an important mission to accomplish, Jiraiya said. Let's then take on this mission. This is awesome, Sensei. Minato smiled, as this mission should at least be a rank A, which he really wanted to do. Yes, I see you're not satisfied with rank D missions, so let's do something different, he said, and Minato nodded. You need to rest to take us back to the village, don't you? He asked. Yes, I need to replenish some of my chakra, Minato said. They spent some time on the beach, returning to the first part of the beach, and Guren ended up appearing in the water.
Minato! He called. HM? A talking fish? Jiraiya was surprised by this.
This is Guren, a carp I found a while ago. He's always with me when I train here, and I help him train too, Minato said, and Jiraiya became a little curious, asking Guren some questions similar to when Minato first found him.
Well, that's quite surprising, Jiraiya said after conversing with Guren. I know, anyway, let's go back to the village. My chakra has returned. Goodbye, Guren,
Minato said and touched his sensei, as they returned to the Hokage's head where Minato's seal was. Jiraiya looked surprised again to be in the village in an instant while Minato became even weaker than the first time, leading Jiraiya.
He took a deep breath, wanting to go home and rest.
You can go rest, I'll talk to my sensei about this, Jiraiya said as he held the scroll in his hand, and Minato nodded as he used his jutsu again, collapsing into his bed and passing out the next moment. Jiraiya couldn't help but feel envious of Minato mastering such a useful jutsu. After all, it could make one disappear when discovered in the women's bathroom. He then leaped from the first Hokage's head and landed on the Hokage tower, landing softly and going to the door to speak with Hiruzen.
Hokage-sama.
Jiraiya is approaching, an ANBU said as Hiruzen was reading through some more reports.
Jiraiya?
Let him in, the Hokage said.
Yes, Hokage-sama, the ANBU vanished.
At that moment, the door opened, and Jiraiya entered the room calmly.
"Hello, sensei," he said. "Jiraiya. What can I do for you?"
"I hope you're not here to invite me for your research. I'm busy right now." Hiruzen took a puff of his pipe before speaking. "As much as I would like to, I have a more serious matter now." Jiraiya approached with the scroll that Minato had handed to him.
"What is this?"
he asked, taking the scroll from Jiraiya's hand.
"See for yourself," Jiraiya said. Hiruzen opened it and began to read, furrowing his brow. "Where did you get this?" he asked.
"In the south, a band of Wind Country ninjas invaded our borders by water.
It seems there's a plot between two nations to weaken us," he said, and although Hiruzen wanted more details on how he got it, there was something more important at the moment. "We must increase security in the capital," he spoke, as the enemy's plan should have been underway for days.
"Yes, I'd like to take my team for this mission," Jiraiya said.
"I was planning to take them to the battlefield. But this is more important.
We don't have many jonin in the village right now, so I'll send a team of newly graduated ones who are still in the village," Hiruzen concluded.
"That's good,"
Jiraiya said before bidding farewell.
After Jiraiya left, Hiruzen turned to his ANBU. "Summon Team 2, he said as the ANBU nodded and left.
"It seems in this war, the villages are doing everything to defeat us," he murmured, seeing that they were even planning to capture the daimyo. The next day, Minato woke up and left the house to meet his team after taking a shower and getting ready. He was the first to arrive, but it didn't take long for Hanabi and Makoto to show up.
"Are we going to have to do more cat-catching missions today?" Makoto commented. "I hope not," Hanabi added as Minato remained silent. Jiraiya appeared shortly after. "Good morning, everyone," he greeted and continued. "I see you're all very excited today. How about you follow me first?" he said. The three exchanged glances before nodding and following their sensei.
They went straight to the Hokage Tower, where mission assignments were given. Hiruzen was sitting in the middle of the main table with some ninjas on either side, picking up papers as Jiraiya entered with Team 7. "Good morning," Jiraiya greeted everyone as Minato and the others entered the room calmly, waiting for the sensei to handle whatever they had come to do here. "You're here, Jiraiya," the Hokage greeted him and began to pick up a paper. "Here, this mission I drafted yesterday, you and your team will be going on an S-rank mission," he announced, leaving Hanabi and Makoto shocked, while even Minato was a little surprised by this.
"An S-rank mission?" Jiraiya scratched his chin.
"But I'm sure it won't be just my team for such a task," he said, and Hiruzen nodded. "Yes, as an important mission, I've called a team of newly graduated and 2 other teams with jonin. There's a ninja I've requested from the border as well," Hiruzen said. "After all, an S-rank mission shouldn't be carried out by a bunch of genin, he would put other jonin in."
Jiraiya nodded. "That's good. Where can we find our other comrades?" he asked.
"Team 2 has already been informed and is waiting for you at the gate at 2 p.m. along with the jonin teams. You'll be the mission leader, Jiraiya. Another ninja is coming to meet you in the capital, and here are all the details for you," Hiruzen said, handing a specific scroll to Jiraiya, who approached and nodded. "Let's go outside," Jiraiya said as the 3 children followed him.
"Did you see, we have an important mission to accomplish," he commented. "Wait, sensei. An S-rank mission. So sudden?" Hanabi spoke. "Well, it came up last minute, and we're at war."
"Few ninjas could move quickly for something this important," Jiraiya spoke and continued. "Anyway, pack your things, we'll meet with the other ninjas in the early afternoon. I'll be waiting for you at the location," he concluded, and everyone nodded, leaving and returning to their homes.
Minato entered his house and began to pack what he would take.
He put everything into a scroll, and with some money, Minato could be considered quite wealthy. He started by selling low-quality exploding tags but soon began to develop and sell many of them at a great price while only using clones to create them. He planned to buy a big house soon with the money he was making since he had to move into the Namikaze residence soon. It wasn't even noon when he was already ready, so he thought about seeing Kushina before leaving and letting her know he would be leaving the village. Using his teleportation jutsu, he quickly reached the Senju residence, asking for some servants to call Kushina. Kushina, a little surprised to see Minato while studying, went to him at the entrance. "Do you want to have lunch with me?" he asked.
Yes.
She said with a smile. After all, she was studying jutsus and even the seals that would bind the fox when she became the Jinchuriki, so she could spend some time with Minato. They ended up going to Ramen Ichiraku and had lunch there.
So you're leaving the village?
She commented, a little surprised but also sad.
Yes, I'm on a secret S-rank mission, so we're heading to the capital. Minato shouldn't even disclose any mission information, but for Kushina, the basics wouldn't hurt. I see. Will you come back as soon as you can? She asked.
I believe so, but since we're at war, I might be called to some of the borders with my team.
He said. That sounds bad, Databane.
She still muttered, but tried to be upbeat for Minato.
Anyway, I'll be waiting for you here, just come back safely, she said, trying to sound calm. Minato nodded despite not liking how Kushina tried to sound calm.
There was nothing to be done, they continued to eat and talk about lighter topics.
In the end, Minato took Kushina back to her clan, and they said their goodbyes.
Good luck, I hope you succeed, she said, hugging him.
Yes, I'll be back in the village soon if I can return.
Anyway, I hope you'll be alright too, Minato said, returning the hug. They said goodbye, each going their separate ways while taking a glance at their backs. Minato resumed leaping across the rooftops toward the north gate.
Once he arrived, there were some jonins waiting with Jiraiya.
You've arrived, he said, and Minato nodded. So this is the rookie who caused explosive chaos 2 days ago? One jonin said, smiling at Minato, as the sounds of jutsus between Minato and Jiraiya echoed throughout the village in Training Ground 7.
Let's see if the brat can live up to his reputation, said an Uchiha jonin who also joined the mission, with an arrogant tone.
Makoto and Hanabi came at this moment, and another group appeared, consisting of a Hyuga leader and his former classmates, Hizashi Hyuga, Hayashi Hyuga, and Tsum and Izuka beside them. This team is certainly important for this mission, Minato thought, looking at that team basically made for tracking. Now that everyone's here, let's start by introducing ourselves to begin the mission, Jiraiya declared.
Chapter 78 Mission Rank S03. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 36.
The group gathered a bit away from the gate, as the jonins began with the introductions.
Jiraiya looked at everyone and started with me.
As you all already know, I am Jiraiya and will be the leader of this mission. I'll be with my squad of genins, and another newly formed team will accompany us.
He looked at everyone before continuing.
For all of them, it's their first mission, so a bit of patience with the novices. Jiraiya spoke and returned to the children. You, however, must follow my command and the guidance of your own teachers. It might be your first mission, but it's an S-level mission, which could affect the war that Konoha is currently waging at this moment with all nations, so there is no room for failure. He said in a more serious tone, something he wasn't used to doing. He turned back to the 6 jonins who were summoned.
Now you, before the sensei and the children. I'm Jiraiya Uchiha, we will work together. He said with an arrogant tone.
I'm Vayer Cole, from a civilian family.
Another spoke. Kirill Nara, we'll be together. Minato heard the member of the Nara clan, at least this one didn't seem as lazy as his former classmate.
Lortu Hataki. A jonin with short white hair spoke while keeping a huge sword on his back.
Rate Senju.
The 5th spoke, and Minato looked surprised to see a Senju, not remembering having met him before. After all, they were quite scarce now.
Puri Shardy, civilian. Said the last one, seeming a bit shy. Jiraiya nodded and returned to the group with the sensei and another 3 genins. Good, now your turn. My Hyuga, sensei, and specialized in tracking like my team.
He spoke and turned back to the children.
Hayashi Hyuga. Hizashi Hyuga. Tsum Izuka.
The 3 quickly stated their names, while the Hyugas maintained a firm posture and discipline, the future mother of Kiba almost growling as she spoke.
Minato also noted how Hanabi seemed a bit uncomfortable with the presence of other Hyugas but tried not to show it superficially. Now my students. Jiraiya looked at them. Makoto Uchiha. Hanabi Hyuga. Minato Namikaze.
After the introductions, Jiraiya made hand signs and hit the ground with a toad appearing after the smoke, the summon crossed its arms and opened its mouth while a scroll came out of its tongue to Jiraiya.
How disgusting! Makoto murmured softly while no one else made comments.
As you know, we have an important mission. It seems there are many ninjas infiltrated in the country of fire. Our goal is to stop them before they launch an attack directly on the capital. After all, their target is our daimyo. Jiraiya concluded while everyone nodded, seeing the seriousness of the mission. Jiraiya took out a map beside the scroll and placed it on the ground as he began pointing his finger at various strategic points in the country of fire where they could begin their searches. The Hokage and I started to analyze the best places to begin our searches, so we're heading north, in this area.
Jiraiya pointed to the region near the capital city.
As soon as everyone nodded, Jiraiya began to lead the group after his summon left and started jumping between the trees heading for the first location. The journey was smooth without anything unusual. The Jonins conversed among themselves. Makoto and Hanabi remained silent while they continued on the path. They stopped as night had arrived, setting up a camp to spend the night in the forest. Look around the area and see if you find any activity. Jiraiya spoke to the Jonins and returned to the Genins. You hunt something to eat,
he said, and everyone nodded. Hey, Hanabi, how about a competition?
You seem to have gotten a lot stronger since you earned the right to enter the elite class, Hayashi commented with an arrogant tone bordering on hostile. Minato looked at that a bit surprised. He knew that the future patriarch was quite arrogant in the class, and Minato had beaten him up many times because of it, but he had never been hostile like he was at this moment with Hanabi or anyone else. Hanabi remained silent upon hearing those words, as she had been criticized a lot lately within the clan.
Minato noticed something strange. Do you really want a competition here?
What for?
And is that how you talk to a mission comrade? Minato intervened, speaking calmly while looking seriously at the Hyuga.
Hayashi looked a bit surprised at Minato's interference, becoming somewhat cautious. After all, he couldn't deal with the top newcomer, but still, he held his chin up.
You have nothing to do with Hyuga affairs, Minato, he said.
Maybe not, but we are on an S-level mission together and you should treat my comrade well, so I will warn just once. Minato spoke while only the 6 Genins were alone. Hayashi, you can stop being arrogant, you know you will get beaten up by Minato, some said, keeping a bored look to his side. His brother, Hizashi, kept a watchful eye on Minato, to protect his older brother. Hayashi seemed to have gotten irritated by these words. He's not from the Hyuga clan, he doesn't have a say in this and all Hyugas here must protect me, he said, and before he could respond, his face sank as Minato appeared with a yellow flash, making the Hyuga fall backwards. Minato was tired of hearing these things, especially seeing Hayashi being so arrogant while they were alone. Minato never had much contact with the Hyugas except for Hanabi, since at all the celebrations they held among the students, the Hyugas didn't participate in any, preferring to isolate themselves from the rest. Now that they were finally out of the academy, he didn't like his attitude much and punched him after hearing such words. After all, he didn't want someone spoiled on such an important mission. Before Hizashi and Hanabi could react, since they were supposed to protect the main family member, Hayashi was sent back knocked out, rolling on the ground until he stopped.
Minato.
Makoto murmured to that, especially seeing Minato unleash his power for the first time, wondering what he did. One moment he was by her side, the next, punching the Hyuga. Tell that arrogant when he wakes up, that he must remember we are in the middle of a mission and must work together, not dwell on any internal conflict they have. Minato spoke fiercely and looked at his comrades, while everyone was surprised by it some more by what Minato used while he shone than by Hayashi fallen on the ground. Let's go hunting, Minato spoke while walking away. Makoto followed him, and Hanabi looked at the main clan member before jumping to follow them.
Aren't you being a bit hypocritical by hitting him on such an important mission? Makoto commented on the side.
Maybe, but I don't like that kind of attitude. This guy clearly likes to step on others, and you Hanabi, why did he act with you that way?
Minato asked, since Hayashi was not like that with her in the academy.
She was a bit silent and decided to speak. When we graduated, the clan was not very pleased with a member of the main lineage participating in a tracking team, while I ended up entering the team of the Hokage's student, Jiraiya-sensei, she admitted. The elders of the clan even pressured her grandfather, who was also from the second family. The elders who remained in Konoha did not like the fact that one of their candidates to be patriarch in the future was assigned to something less prominent than a member of the secondary house. After all, Hanabi was teamed up with the top genius and one of the 3 students of the Hokage.
The Hokage was pressured the same day the teams were announced, wanting Hayashi to be in a more prominent team and not participate in something like a tracking team, but Hiruzen did not yield. In summary, it was Jiraiya himself who created the team. Not being able to pick Kushina or Tsuna, he chose the team focused only on Minato, picking other teammates that he already had some close relationship with from what he could see while observing the boys' daily life. What nonsense! Minato commented with a hostile tone.
Anyway, let me know if he continues to act like this, he finished.
Minato, you can't act like this, there are consequences. Hanabi spoke cautiously.
I don't mind fighting with the Hyuga clan if it means protecting my teammate, he spoke in a serious tone.
You can't be serious. Makoto spoke with a questioning tone.
Of course, I am, and I'll space everyone in that clan if necessary, believe me, he finished and continued jumping between the trees in one direction while sensing an animal he could catch. Makoto remained silent while Hanabi was quite surprised but grateful in her heart. She activated her Byakugan and saw Minato act as if he had one too as he easily found a wild pig, throwing a kunai at its vital point for a quick death. Minato landed in front of the dead animal while opening a scroll to store it.
That was quite fast. Makoto murmured, feeling somewhat useless here.
Let's get a few more, Minato said as his observation haki scanned the whole area and found some rabbits.
You could have accepted that Hyuga's challenge, you seem to find anything here. Makoto couldn't help but comment as Minato caught 3 more rabbits in less than 3 minutes.
How can you do that? I knew you had that kind of sensor, but seeing it now in practice, it seems even better than my Byakugan.
Hanabi couldn't help but comment as she saw Minato hunt everything easily. Minato is always full of secrets, but taking advantage of the questions, how did you move shining at that moment? No one could react to that. Makoto spoke, remembering the punch the boy gave the arrogant Hyuga. She knew he wasn't using that teleportation jutsu. Hanabi remained silent about that. She saw Minato transform parts of his body into light at any damage he received, but she didn't know he could move so fast. I have unique abilities, I shouldn't even use that here, but since I did, I can say that one day you'll know. Minato spoke. He was sure that his demonstration wouldn't let many beyond those who saw know what he did, and he could say he used the Raijin at worst. After all, he was taken by anger at that moment, that's why he acted as he did. Now let's go back, I want to eat something after traveling all day, Minato said as they headed to the camp. Arriving at the site, there was Jiraiya talking with the Hyuga sensei and the Nara Jonin while analyzing the map for the mission. Minato approached while handing the storage scroll to Jiraiya. You came back quickly, how about preparing the food? Jiraiya commented with a smile. Minato sighed since he was reduced to a cook and he wouldn't have help while Makoto and Hanabi were drooling, already knowing they would eat the blonde's cooking. Chapter 79 Mission Rank S04 Third Person POV Konoha, Year 36.
Minato ended up being responsible for the camp's food while the girls watched him with expectations.
After all, they both knew what was coming. Well, I shouldn't be surprised by this, he murmured internally as he looked over to Makoto and Hanabi waiting for him to finish. He quickly grabbed his storage scrolls and began taking out cutlery and sauces, along with pans where he liked to make his food. Even Jiraiya, still studying the map with the Jonins, looked a bit surprised at his student taking out so much to make dinner as he noticed the huge amount of canned ingredients Minato was setting aside. Minato summoned 3 clones. Seeing that he was alone in this, the clones began removing the carcasses of the animals he had hunted and the Minatos began to clean them. Minato quickly started working on that wild boar and in no time there were many cuts perfectly made by his clones while he seasoned them and began placing them on the campfire. The smell soon began to fill the area. What's that? Smells really good. A group of 3 Jonins finally returned after scouting the area and immediately smelled the food as soon as they arrived. Hey, kid. What are you cooking there? Looks really good. Another Jonin approached Minato in a friendly manner and smiled with some expectation at the genin seeing him prepare the camp food. Just some things I thought would be good. Minato murmured, a bit surprised by this. Ha ha. Do you have a talent for cooking, Minato? Jiraiya also approached pleased while his student continued making the food on his own. Minato just shrugged, as he didn't need to answer that and continued focusing on the task.
It didn't take long for two other jonins to arrive and come over waiting to eat what was being prepared. A moment later, Team 2 arrived at the location. They grabbed some food too, but the meal was almost ready since Minato had started.
What happened to you, Hayashi? The Hyuga and Team 2 sensei looked at Hayashi a bit surprised with the boy and his left eye purple, almost swollen.
Hizashi and Sum remained silent, not ceasing to look at Minato in a corner, but Hayashi commented with a neutral tone.
I ended up hitting my eye. He said, seeming to be in conflict with his pride to not cry around saying that he got beaten by another genin. He really was afraid of Minato. What happened there was quite surprising when he couldn't even react to the speed of the other genin, something he had never seen from the number 1 rookie, and this could be taken from Hizashi and Sum beside their dog.
Woof! Sum's dog barked as soon as it smelled the food excitedly.
That looks good. Is Minato making it?
Sum sniffed before approaching, seeing the food being made by her colleague. She didn't seem to care much about the fact that the boy had hit her classmate a little while ago.
Minato finally finished his dish and offered it to everyone there, with them serving themselves as soon as he concluded.
This is really good, as expected of the number 1 rookie, said a civilian jonin cheerfully. Tisk. The Uchiha jonin clicked his tongue, but still ate his food.
This is really good, Jiraiya said cheerfully, eating his meal too.
Hanabi and Makoto ate happily in a corner. Despite already knowing Minato's abilities with his food, they never ceased to be amazed by it. After the meal, as the night already stabilized in the sky, the camp began to be organized by sentinels. Even the genin stayed to watch together with a jonin.
After Makoto and Sum took the first shift, Minato and Hanabi went for the others while the jonin from the Nara clan stayed with them.
Minato. While everything seemed quiet, Hanabi called him after a while.
Yes? Minato looked at her approaching as he was keeping watch from atop a rock.
I just wanted to say that
I'm grateful for you defending me today, she said. You don't need to thank me, you would have done the same. Minato smiled. Even so, thank you,
she said with a slight blush on her face.
Young love, it's so troublesome.
Another voice emerged, and the Nara jonin was above the tree next to Minato, taking Hanabi by surprise since she hadn't activated her Byakugan, while Minato already knew of his presence with Haki. After he said that, he jumped to the other side of the camp while Hanabi was a bit embarrassed. Minato just shrugged.
Minato turned his attention to the girl, who was a bit shy about it, and took out a tray. Are you hungry? I have some pasta I prepared for the trip. She offered it to him.
Despite her embarrassment, she nodded when she saw his food, unable to resist as she sat next to him and took the pasta from Minato.
You know,
she began, sitting next to him, looking up at the sky. My eyes can reach many things, but what fascinates me the most are the things they cannot reach, like the stars in the sky,
she said. Did you know that each of those stars is like our sun?
Minato also looked up at the sky as he let that thought slip.
Like our sun? But it's so big. How is that possible?
She asked, bewildered, and Minato almost laughed at her reaction and question. Sometimes I forget that we are in a world that is medieval and technological, having appliances that I forget there are many areas where people are prehistoric in this world. He thought since astrology was not used in this world, so there were no studies in that area. Minato, after holding back his laughter, spoke calmly. I can't prove it, but we are nothing compared to the rest of the things that exist outside this planet. Minato commented, aware of the vastness of the universe and even the powerful beings that lived outside of it, like the Otsutsuki clan.
Thinking about it, I will have to deal with them one day.
Minato thought, after all, he would become the most powerful ninja in this world one day, and that clan will appear. It's up to him and perhaps his children to fight to protect this planet. Aside from the dark future of this world. He saw Hanabi a bit thoughtful after his words. You know, I've always admired the stars, but hearing your words they seem even more incredible, she said, but a thought occurred to Hanabi at that moment, who looked at Minato in confusion. If they are like our sun, does that mean there are other people on the stars? Which was a logical question.
Most are uninhabited, but there must be other worlds out there, Minato commented, not ceasing to think about extraterrestrials.
The rest of their watch was spent looking at the stars until finally their shift ended and Minato and Hanabi returned while the Hyuga siblings took over the last hours. As dawn broke, everyone prepared to continue the journey. Minato stored everything in his scroll and returned to his team as they continued north of the country.
This country is so large. Makoto couldn't help but comment after all they've been advancing north for a day and haven't reached their goal yet.
Minato arrived at the south coast in a few hours thanks to his fruit, which could make him travel at the speed of light, otherwise, he wouldn't arrive in less than 2 days. After that, there were no more comments as they followed through the land of fire, without stopping for lunch until they finally arrived in one of the cities near the capital as night began. Jiraiya raised his hand as all the Konoha ninjas stopped at his command. They were still in the forest near the city.
Come with me, let's discuss the next steps of the mission.
Jiraiya informed and everyone landed on the ground as he asked, while he took out a scroll with the map of the region. Listen now, we will start our mission in this city, the 8 cities around the capital. Our objective is to find all the infiltrated groups in the land of fire. We will divide from here. Our Jonin Nara will be the strategic part of the mission, while my team gathers information. The Hyuga team will try to track any suspects.
As for me, Uchiha, we will head to the capital before any attack happens to the daimyo.
He informed while pointing out all the cities on the map. The Genin teams would search for information in the 8 cities, while the Jonin with Nara would eliminate and capture those involved.
Did you say we would be receiving reinforcements? A Jonin asked Jiraiya.
That's correct. Initially the Hokage had pulled someone specialized in tracking at the border, but I requested a member of the clan. After all, we need quick information, and there's no one better than them at extracting information from the terrorists, Jiraiya spoke. Everyone nodded, but Minato was doubtful. After all, Jiraiya would go to the capital, which would leave his team without a Jonin.
Who could lead them then? Jiraiya seemed to see the doubt in Minato and ignored it for the moment.
I want you to choose a place to sleep tonight in the city. Tomorrow we will meet together before starting the mission. Remember, we must be discreet from now on, without our enemies knowing we are hunting them, Jiraiya informed, as they were supposed to be alone, just meeting to deliver reports and exchange information. As soon as his words were said, the 2 teams of Jonin and Team 2 immediately left, going into the city to different points while choosing a place to spend the night. Jiraiya turned back to the only ones who remained in place, his students. Let's choose a place to spend the night, but before that, I want to inform you of some things, Jiraiya spoke.
Like not having a Jonin with us? Makoto crossed her arms. Exactly, you have proven to be quite capable.
I know I should be with you, but the safety of the daimyo is a priority, so I will be passing the team leadership to Minato, Jiraiya said, leaving Minato a little surprised.
Me?
He really didn't expect this, it being his first mission outside of Konoha. Exactly, it was thanks to you that we are doing this mission. You proved to be someone who knows how to collect information. The same happened when you faced the squadron of terrorist ninjas within the village, Jiraiya spoke, making Hanabi and Makoto look at Minato surprised. After all, even though many adults know what happened that night, almost no one spoke with low-rank ninjas and civilians to avoid panic that there was a terrorist group within the village. Hanabi and Makoto were not aware of this, and neither that it was Minato who acquired this S-rank mission. Jiraiya wanted Minato to grow as soon as possible. After all, he should prepare for war as soon as possible. It will be good training and a test for you, and see, none of your companions disagree with this, Jiraiya spoke looking at Hanabi and Makoto who just nodded.
Minato sighed but still looked with some determination, hoping to succeed in this mission.
Yes, I accept to be the leader. I will not fail and I will protect my companions with the success of this mission, Minato spoke while Hanabi opened a smile with her teeth and Makoto curved her lips.
Jiraiya nodded a bit proudly and continued. Now let's go to the city to choose an inn. We will rest, and tomorrow you will start your mission, he informed, and all 3 nodded. The sensei jumped to the city and Minato's team followed him. Chapter 80, Mission Rank S05. Third Person POV. Konoha, Year 36. They quickly reached the city after their brief meeting, with the day announcing its end and the night beginning. Jiraiya led them to an inn without any other mission members being there, while stealthily perched on one of the windows. I'll get us some rooms. Remember, the mission has already started, so always keep your eyes peeled, he said, and the 3 nodded. The city diversified its commerce in food, accessory shops, and even gambling or prostitution. But it seemed a bit affected by the war, because this place would usually be quite bustling,
but it was a bit empty and even with many establishments closed.
This isn't quite what I was expecting. Hanabi commented, it being her first time out of Konoha.
There were no further comments from her companions, as Minato tried to find anything suspicious with his observation haki, but found nothing that would indicate someone with bad intentions enough to commit a terrorist attack within his range of reach. A moment later, Jiraiya appeared with the room keys and they entered the inn, each getting a room. Everyone entered their room and Minato immediately went to his bed, placing a Raijin symbol. He didn't go to sleep, but started his investigation instead. He turned to his window and immediately jumped out of it. Rising in the air from that inn and trying to map the entire city with his observation haki and placing his seals in various strategic points for teleportation. Jiraiya knew what Minato was doing and just smiled in his room. On the other side of the inn, Hyuga, the Jonin leader of Team 2, was also looking at the city with his Byakugan when he noticed a silhouette passing in front of the moon, which he immediately saw was Minato.
How can he walk in the sky? The man asked, quite surprised and even admired by it. After all, Minato was jumping in the air.
Minato continued investigating the entire city, until he searched the whole place with his observation haki, investigating every inch of it, but in the end found nothing, then disappeared in the middle of the sky and fell on his bed, to sleep. The next day, they had breakfast in the room due to the disguise. Jiraiya was going out towards the capital, but called Minato before to have one last talk before starting the mission.
I'm leaving, you already know what to do,
he said, handing him some scrolls.
Here are the details you need to know about how the other teams will act,
he said, and Minato nodded, taking the scroll.
You went out yesterday, did you find anything? He couldn't help asking the boy. No, the city is clean of any suspects, Minato admitted.
Still, stay here one more day. There's a large influx of people entering the city, mainly those saying they are fleeing the war. Jiraiya spoke and Minato nodded in agreement.
The reinforcements haven't arrived yet, but they will probably come in the next few days, so look for the teams at that time for an information meeting, Jiraiya commented. After that, he left the room. Jiraiya went away and Minato met with Makoto and Hanabi outside the inn, in civilian clothes, just like Minato, to circulate the city, no longer wearing their headbands. Hanabi still had something on her forehead to hide her seal, yet she looked like a girl with a scarf on her head. Minato, now officially the leader of this team, looked at Makoto and Hanabi. Let's split up and blend in among the residents. Look for any suspicious behavior or information that might indicate the presence of infiltrators.
We'll meet here at dusk to share what we discover. His voice was more authoritative than usual.
Someone's getting used to the role of leader? Makoto smiled at Minato.
I'm just doing what I must, Minato shrugged. Anyway, let's do it this way. We might not be like Team 2, but we certainly have our own skills, he said, and the girls nodded.
Makoto nodded, his expression becoming serious at that moment.
I'll use my Sharingan at high points in the city, he said, and Minato nodded. My Byakugan can help detect any strange chakra. I'll focus on that on the city walls, Hanabi said. Alright, just stay discreet and don't let the enemy know we're looking for them, Minato said, and right after that, they left the hidden spot and began walking through the city in opposite directions. Meanwhile, the Jonin teams, some followed Jiraiya to the capital while others started to scour the area outside the cities. Team 2 headed to a neighboring city to the north. Minato spent the day observing, listening, and gathering information that would be useful, while continuing to monitor anyone with suspicious intentions in their aura. He moved with agility and didn't attract attention, his young and harmless appearance without his clothes or headband allowing him to go unnoticed among the civilians and merchants. Makoto was on top of one of the city's highest structures looking attentively at the movement of the streets with his Sharingan open, but nothing important caught his eye. Hanabi was hidden inside a tree with her Byakugan activated. She was near the gate while trying to detect any anomalies there, but nothing stood out among the flow of people coming in and going out. As the sun began to set, Minato decided to return to the meeting point near the inn. The three of them regrouped there, sharing their findings.
Minato listened attentively to each report, but it was quite disappointing.
Minato, assessing the situation with a thoughtful look, decided that this city had nothing more for them. We found nothing substantial here. I think our next step should be to move to the neighboring city to the east. Maybe we'll have more luck there, he suggested to his team members.
Makoto and Hanabi agreed, trusting Minato's decision. They returned to the inn, as Jiraiya had paid for an extra night, and each went back to their bed, except for Minato, who went back to jumping through the sky, doing one last reconnaissance of the area, a habit he had developed to ensure nothing was left behind. He returned to his room and waited for dawn before meeting up with his team again. They left the inn and left the city. The journey was smooth. Makoto and Hanabi looked quite serious, and the only noise was marked by the sound of their synchronized steps and by the gentle wind blowing. Upon arriving, they were greeted by a landscape similar to the previous city in the early afternoon. "Let's split up again," Minato instructed, "but this time, let's try something different." Makoto, try to focus on the people. Hanabi, use your Byakugan to map the distribution of chakra through the city. This might give us clues about any suspects. Following Minato's instructions, the team dispersed once again, each member going their own way in the new city. As the afternoon progressed, they collected new information, observed patterns and behaviors of everyone they saw, but nothing significant. As the evening approached, the city seemed to have a festival happening at this time, and the streets began to be decorated with flags and candles everywhere, while the inhabitants themselves seemed to appear dressed in Japanese robes. From a high place, Team 7 regrouped, nothing. Minato commented, seeing that so far, they hadn't found anything suspicious. "At least the city seems better than us." Makoto commented, looking at the streets filling with people. "Doing this in the middle of a war is quite surprising." Hanabi couldn't help but comment. "Our mission hasn't borne any fruit yet. Let's stay another day in this city, looking for any suspects." Minato decided before they left the place. He also planted his seals in this city, so he could come back at any moment. "Shall we choose an inn to stay then?" Hanabi asked Minato. "Yes, but I was thinking, how about we go to the festival too? We have nothing to lose here." Minato proposed, maybe some moment of fun would be good to ease the failure. "I didn't bring appropriate clothes." Hanabi commented, looking at the people and their outfits. "Well, I would like that. I didn't either, but that doesn't mean we can't buy." Makoto said. "I would like that," she said with a small smile. "I, also then," Hanabi said in the end with some blush in her eyes. With that decided, they quickly left that place, choosing an inn close to the city center. Minato had an outfit in his scroll, while the girls quickly went to a store and bought a dress suitable for the occasion. After getting ready, Minato met them with a big smile. "You look beautiful," he said without holding back his compliments, making the girls a bit embarrassed and happy with that comment in their hearts. Hanabi wore her traditional white dress with her hair in a bun, while Makoto had a red outfit with a dragon design and her hair down. Minato wore a black outfit, always maintaining a neutral shade, which she liked. "Let's go." They left the inn. It was a bit difficult for Minato to get a room being a child, but that changed when he showed his headband, which made the man quickly nod and give them the rooms. They left the inn and blended in with the people on the street, now all decorated, as they illuminated the city with people laughing and chatting among themselves and the sound of music with the claps of the spectators as there was a parade on the main street. "Let's watch the parade first," Minato suggested and led the way to the main street, easily making their way in, as it's easy when you're a child. "This looks really cool," Makoto commented on the side. Despite her reserved stance, she couldn't help but be enchanted as she shared the same feeling of the crowd watching the people perform while walking down the main street. For Hanabi, this was a completely new world, an explosion of colors and sounds she never imagined existed outside the walls of Konoha. She allowed herself to laugh a little at it, like Makoto putting aside her Hyuga temperament. Minato watched with a small smile everything. There were no festivals like this in Konoha, so it was a unique experience for him and his companions. The screams of joy and laughter of children running through the open spaces mixed with the distinct sound of traditional music, creating a unique atmosphere of celebration. One of the highlights of the festival were the performances with oriental dragons, mounted by artists who made them dance and weave through the streets. The audience followed with admiration, laughing and clapping with their faces illuminated by the beauty of the spectacle. Makoto and Hanabi couldn't contain fascinated smiles, completely immersed in the magic of the moment. They watched various attractions passing by on the street until Minato decided to leave there. "How about we check out the stalls? We might find something interesting."
With an enthusiastic nod from the two, they ventured through the numerous stalls lining the streets with vendors hoping to make some profit that night. They started eating everything they could of the local cuisine.
"This is so good,"
Hanabi said, eating a skewer with a local dish.
"It's good, but I'm sure Minato could do better if he knew the recipe," Makoto suggested.
Minato didn't respond. Instead, he went to a popsicle stall, the classic from Naruto. Seeing one for the first time, he quickly grabbed one, not with 2 sticks, but 3 sticks.
"Give me one of those," Minato said to the vendor.
3? I knew I could sell one of these tonight. You're really a lucky man, kid,
the man said, taking Minato's money, while he was confused by that.
After he took it, while the girls looked at him bewildered, he turned to them with an innocent smile. "Here, I hope you like it," he said, handing them after breaking them to share. The reactions were instantaneous. Both were visibly shocked by the gesture, their faces tinged red with a mix of surprise and shyness.
"Minato, isn't it kinda inappropriate?" Makoto commented.
Minato was confused by that. While Hanabi was so shy she couldn't even speak, she just pointed to the stall where Minato had bought the popsicles.
"Love stall.
Treat your love with our popsicles." He read the sign, shocked. After all, he hadn't seen that, paying attention only to the popsicles he had seen from the anime. Minato was beginning to scratch his head, not knowing what to say, but at that moment he felt something. A few streets away, entering his observation hockey space, he felt a dark enough aura to alert him of an enemy. Finally found one. Minato couldn't help commenting while the girls were a bit confused after all this confusion. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.